Level 1. The bullied teen. You're 16, 90 pounds soaking wet, fishing your dead father's lighter out of a high school urinal. And in 30 years, you'll put a bullet through the man who sells wars to governments. His name is Brett, wrestling captain. He's been flicking your dad's brass Zippo open and shut for his buddies, bored with it, and he just dropped it in the bowl like a cigarette butt. Your old man died for the country and left it to you? He says. Should have kept the lighter and ditched the kid. Your dad's a folded flag in a box at Arlington. That lighter is the only piece of him you've got. So you reach in with a bare hand and pull it out, and you don't cry. You go cold instead. Brett shoves you into the tile and your scalp splits open. And something in you reads exactly where his foot is about to land and puts an elbow there. He goes down. You don't. A man in the doorway watched the whole thing. His name is Marcus, not the blood, the cold underneath it. He's already walking over. And the reason a bathroom beatdown ends with a war merchant dead by your hand 30 years from now is whatever Marcus just saw in you. Level 2. Army recruit. A drill sergeant is screaming into the side of your skull because your footlocker is laid out a 1/4 inch off the chalk line. And the one thing that made you dangerous in a high school bathroom is worth exactly nothing on Sandhill. Marcus found you a week after the fight and handed you the card. You told yourself it wasn't about the man who handed it to you, it was about getting out of Ohio, about being something your father wouldn't be ashamed of. But underneath that was the real thing you don't say out loud. You're tired of being the one who couldn't protect anybody, not even himself. You want, just once, to be the man in the doorway instead of the kid bleeding on the floor. The recruiter's office had a poster of a soldier silhouetted on a ridgeline with the flag burning gold behind him. Nobody showed you the 4 hours of folding. 90% of this is waiting, buffing a floor that's already a mirror, rolling 40 pairs of socks into tight green fists at 2 in the morning while a man who hates you dumps your locker onto the floor for the 3rd time because one of them gave half an inch. You roll them again. He dumps them again. They start saying a word around you, recycle. And you can feel the one place you've ever fit starting to spit you back out. Because you can read a man at 40 miles an hour, but you can't square a locker. And the Army has decided those are the same skill. Then you go to the range. First live fire, a borrowed M4, and the marksmanship instructor stops behind you, watches your group, watches you again. He smoked 10,000 recruits, and something about your trigger is wrong in a way he can't name. You're breaking the shot in the little pause between heartbeats, the same stillness you found with your scalp against the tile, except now it's pointed at a target instead of at a bully. Who taught you to shoot like that? He says. Nobody did. You don't have an answer he'd believe. The lighter rides in the bottom of your footlocker wrapped in a green sock under the cardboard liner. A bunkmate asks what a grown man's doing with a B-tub Zippo that won't even spark. You tell him it's lucky. Luck has nothing to do with it. You just don't have the word yet for what it actually is. Qualification day. 40 pop-up targets, 50 to 300 meters, everything pointed at this one morning. You stop thinking about your elbows. You stop thinking at all. 38 to 40, expert, top of the company. The instructor who spent 8 weeks promising you'd wash out looks at your scorecard, doesn't say good, and writes your name onto a list he folds into his cargo pocket. That night your phone buzzes once. The man from the doorway, Marcus. He doesn't ask how basic's going. They're going to make you a regular grunt and waste the only thing about you worth anything. There's a school. When they offer it, take it. If they don't offer it, you make them. You ask him what the school is. You'll know it when they try to keep you out of it. And the line goes dead. The way every call with him will end for the next 30 years, him deciding when the conversation's over. You lie in your rack and you can feel it already. You are not being trained. You are being aimed. Level 3. Sergeant. The list got you exactly where Marcus said it would, into a selection course you weren't supposed to volunteer for. Then the units where your eyes were worth more than your rank. 2 deployments, a chest of ribbons you don't talk about, and stripes before you're 25. Now you're the one whose call other men's lives ride on, and that turns out to be the heaviest thing you've ever held. There's a kid on your squad. 19, scared, jumps at the wrong sounds, reminds you of someone who used to get fished out of urinals. You cover for him. You teach him to breathe. You decide quietly that he goes home in one piece. Then comes the checkpoint. Dusk, a town that's been quiet a week, and a battered pickup comes in too fast and won't stop. The call over the net is to light it up. You're on the gun. But you read the driver before you read the truck, a farmer's panic, not a fighter's calm, a tarp in the bed moving like there are small bodies under it. You call hold. You step into the road instead. It's a man rushing his seizing daughter to a clinic. You were right. You are always right about this. It's the one thing you've never once been wrong about. But 2 minutes of delay gets blamed for a pressure plate strike a mile away that was never yours to stop. And a captain who watched it on a screen needs a name for the report. The word they put in your file is hesitated. Same week, a sergeant won Valley over fires on a vehicle without waiting, kills a family of 4, and gets a commendation for being decisive under threat. Same skill, same war. They pin a medal on him for the exact thing they write you up for. The system can't see what you are. It only sees whether you make its paperwork easy. The kid makes it home, though. Spring, a son, a duplex in Fayetteville. You did that, and you hold on to it. You meet Hannah between rotations in an ER where she's stitching your hand and not flinching at how you got it. You marry her in 8 months because soldiers don't have time to be careful. One night you show her the lighter and you tell her the whole thing, the urinal, Brett. Your father in the box at Arlington, the cold you found that day and never lost. I don't want to be the guy who's good at this forever, you tell her. I want a porch. I want to be the one thing standing between you and the door. I want to protect somebody all the way, just once, instead of showing up 9 minutes too late. She takes your hand and puts it flat on her stomach, and you feel it a small kick against your palm. The first thing in your whole life that needs you to be exactly the man you've been promising to become. You decide his name on the spot, Sam after your father. Then Marcus comes back into your life, sitting at your table. Out of uniform now, a watch on his wrist worth your whole year. He doesn't ask about the baby. They're going to spend your conscience and call it service, he says. I've got an outfit, same rifle, 10 times the pay, and not one colonel deciding your instincts are a defect. One contract, see how it fits. You've got a reprimand in your file, a son on the way, and a wife who deserves better than army pay. You say yes to one contract. You always think it's going to be one. Level 4, private military contractor. One contract becomes a passport with no stamps in it and an account in a country that doesn't ask questions. You're out of the green suit now, into a one-word company with a logo like a closed fist. Same rifle, 10 times the money. And the thing that broke you in the army, a rule about who you're allowed to point it at, is just gone. Like a wall they tore down while you were sleeping. The first job almost makes you a believer. His name doesn't matter, what matters is what he does. A warlord in a province the news can't spell, a man who burns villages and films it, who the army spent 2 years not being allowed to touch because he sat one valley inside the wrong border. You don't have a border out here. You flick the lighter open and shut once before you settle in behind the glass, a habit you started your first week out here and won't break until the day you die. Then you take him at 1,100 meters on a Tuesday morning, and a valley that's held its breath for a decade finally lets it out. The money hits the nameless account before his guards stop running. You wire half of it home. There's a crib now you've only seen on a video call, Sam, 6 weeks old, gripping your finger through a phone screen so hard the connection feels real. This, you tell yourself, is the porch. You're just buying it in a currency you've decided not to look at too closely. Here's the one that should have stopped you, and didn't. A job in a city that's officially at peace. The brief calls the target a destabilizing element. You put the glass on him and your eyes call him something else, soft accountant's hands. A briefcase instead of a rifle. A name that turns up in a newspaper and not in any threat assessment. He's a man walking to lunch. You hold on him for a long 4 seconds while the cold thing and the right thing argue inside your chest. Then you take the shot, because the account is empty until you do. The nausea afterwards sits in your gut with no name attached, the same way the lighter had no name back in basic. You ride out in the back of a seatless Hilux and don't say a word the whole way. The silence is the first honest thing you've felt in months. That night you start asking the question you're not supposed to ask out here. Not who's the target, who's the client. Marcus answers it without answering it. Every contract seems to lead back to him. He's the senior man in the region now, and he finds you in a hotel bar that costs more a night than a private makes in a month, and he sets a drink in front of you that you never ordered. Out here nobody's keeping score, brother, he says, like he's handing you a gift. That's the whole point. But you keep score. You've kept score since a urinal in Ohio. So you pull a thread on the company, a shell inside a holding firm, and over 3 sleepless nights, the ownership resolves into a single name you have known since a doorway 30 years ago. You don't say it out loud. You put the lighter on the nightstand and you don't sleep Because some part of you already understands what it means that the man who pulled you out of that bathroom owns the rifle, owns the targets, and owns you. And if he owns all of that, then every destabilizing element you've dropped wasn't a war you were fighting. It was a war somebody was selling. You just can't prove it yet. Level 5, PMC Team Leader. Your reputation buys you a team, and a team buys you the books. Team Leader now. You don't pull the trigger anymore, you build the shot and another man's finger moves on your word, and that's heavier than killing by a mile. But it comes with access. Manifests, client lists, the math behind every man you've been dropping. That's how you finally prove what you couldn't prove in a hotel bar. The company is Marcus's. All of it, top to bottom. And the targets were never threats, they were products. A witness here, a rival bidder there, a whole village cleared so a contract to stabilize the region could get signed the next quarter by the same governments and companies that paid to destabilize it in the first place. The man who pulled you out of a urinal built a machine that sells wars to the people who run the world and builds them again to put the fires out. And for 2 years, you were the rifle. You don't blow it up. Not yet. You do something smaller and stupider. A job comes down on a compound that's supposed to be full of fighters, and your eyes say families, so you miss on purpose, and you get a runner to the back gate an hour before the strike. You save exactly one family. One. It works. And it tells Marcus everything, because he doesn't fire men like you. You're not a contractor to him, you're a thing he made, and the thing has the same defect it had in the army, a conscience that won't stay bought. He doesn't even raise his voice. He sends you downrange on a contract that, you'll understand later, never existed. Gets you 9,000 miles from home with a rifle in your hands and your phone routed through a foreign tower. The call comes at 3 a.m. local on a satellite phone. You almost don't pick up, but you've never been able to ignore what your gut is reading. So you answer, a gas leak, back home. The house, the crib, the porch you put a down payment on. Hannah is gone. Sam is gone. Sam, who is almost 2, who learned to walk in a video you watched 4 times on a cot in the dark, who grips your finger so hard it feels real through a phone. You stand up. You sit back down. You ask the man to say it again. He says it again. You are 9,000 miles away with the most expensive rifle in the world in your lap, and there is nothing on this earth it can do. You couldn't keep your father's lighter out of a urinal. And now you couldn't be in the one room that has ever actually mattered, because a man invented a war to make sure you were somewhere else when it happened. The lighter comes back to you a week later, in a padded envelope with no return address, smoke black. Recovered from the scene, says a note with no name signed to it. A blast that levels a house doesn't leave a brass lighter whole enough to mail. Somebody picked it up off the floor and chose to send it to you. You turn it over in your hands for a long time. That's how you know. Not a leak. Marcus's signature. Marcus did it the way he does everything now, gently, at a distance, with a condolence card and clean hands. He wanted you to know. Hannah and Sam were the message. He didn't even need to look you in the eye. You sit on the floor of a barracks in a country with no name, and you hold a blackened Zippo that won't spark. And the cold you found at 16 comes all the way back up your spine. This time it doesn't leave. You understand 3 things at once. He killed them because you grieved, and a man who grieves talks. You're next on the list. And the only reason you're still breathing is that he thinks you don't know yet. So you do the one thing he'll never expect from the man he broke. You start planning how to disappear. Level 6. Fugitive Mercenary. You bury 2 coffins, one of them small, under a flag you stopped believing in years ago, and you know with cold certainty that you're the next hole in the ground. So before Marcus can close you close yourself. A rented sedan, a border road at night, a fire that burns hot enough that the teeth in it could be anybody's. The man Marcus made dies in that car. What walks out of the tree line is no one. No name, no number, no flag, no past anybody can pull a thread on. You learn the gray man trade fast, because it turns out you've been training for it since you were 16. Cash only. A new burner every week. Never the same town twice. Never your back to a door. Never a face anyone remembers an hour later. The whole skill is being the most forgettable man in any room, and you were the most forgettable kid in every room for 19 years before anyone handed you a rifle. The thing that made you a victim is the thing that keeps you alive now. Then Marcus's people make their first mistake. 2 men show up in a town this poor who are too fit to be tourists, asking the wrong questions in the wrong accent. You feel them before you see them. You don't run. You let them find an empty room and you take them on the stairwell, all 3, quiet, clean. Exactly the way Marcus taught you, meeting each man a half second before he arrives. 19 seconds. The hunted thing turns around and bites. Standing over them in the dark, something in your chest goes still. The grief doesn't leave. It just changes shape. It stops being a weight and starts being a plan. You strip their phones. Contacts, call logs, the whole skeleton of Marcus's network laid out in a dead man's recent calls. A chain that runs all the way up to a hotel bar and a drink you didn't order. Revenge isn't an emotion after that. It's a target list. You take the first name off it yourself, a regional fixer who launders the company's contracts, a soft man with hard friends. You find him. You do it slow enough that he understands why. You set the blackened lighter open on his chest and photograph it there, the way it came back to you in that padded envelope. Then you put the lighter back in your pocket and let the picture climb the chain. Because there's a message in it, and exactly one man on earth can read it. I'm not in the ground. I'm coming up the chain, one name at a time, and I'll be standing in front of you when you've got no one left to send. Marcus gets the photograph within a day. Whatever he feels when he sees that open lighter on a dead man's shirt, he answers it the only way he knows how. A message reaches you through 3 cutouts, 4 words long. You always were my best work. Good, you think. Then you'll recognize me coming. Level 7. Rogue operative. You go up the chain one body at a time, and you are better at it than you ever were in uniform, because there is nothing left to lose and no card in your pocket telling you when to stop. This is the part nobody warns you about. You're good at this, a one-man war on an empire, hunted by every government Marcus keeps on retainer, and winning. And it is the loneliest feeling a human being can have. Each name on the list takes you a step closer to him. Each one also takes something out of you that doesn't grow back. You're starting to read rooms the way Marcus reads them for who's useful and who's in the way, and the day you can't tell the difference anymore is the day you become him. You're scared of that day. It's the only thing left that scares you. To reach Marcus, you need a man inside his finance arm, an accountant with the keys to where the money sleeps. And here's where you find out you're not all the way gone yet. You don't kill him, you turn him. And when the company figures out he's talking, you do something you haven't done since a checkpoint a lifetime ago. You get him and his wife and his 2 kids out clean, 3 countries in 4 days, no one touched. You stand between a family and the door, all the way. And it works. It steadies something in you that's been loose since the padded envelope. For the first time, you let yourself wonder if the end of this is a grave or a porch. There's a woman in the last safe house, Maria, the accountant's neighbor, caught in the spillover, calm in a way you forgot people could be. She doesn't ask what you do. She makes coffee at 4 a.m. and hands you a cup and lets the quiet sit there. And for one night, you see it again, the thing you described to Hannah in another life. A door, a porch, somebody to stand in front of. You let yourself want out. You let yourself want to live. After all these years, that's the most dangerous thing you've done yet. The accountant pays his debt in full before you put him on the last plane. He gives you the one thing money can't buy back here. Marcus's actual location, and the window he'll be there. 30 years funnels down to a single valley and a single morning. You stop climbing the chain. No more lieutenants, no more fixers, no more working your way up. You go straight for the head. His last message reaches you before you move, like he can feel it coming. You're the only thing I ever built that I can't control. Come finish it. You flick the blackened lighter open and shut once and slide it into the carrier against your chest where the grief and the paperwork can't reach it. Then you go to end the man who made you. Level 8. Mercenary commander. Marcus doesn't sleep without a wall of men around him. So you do the one thing the kid in that bathroom could never have imagined. You build a wall of your own. Men who hate the company find you burned operators. Families the machine ground up. People with their own padded envelopes. They don't follow you for money. They follow you because you read a room better than any man alive and because you've already done the thing they're all afraid to try. The invisible kid nobody looked at twice has people lining up behind him now. You'd laugh if you remembered how. You hit his compound at the worst hour of the night, and it cost you. 2 of your men go down before you're through the wire. You feel each one the way Marcus never did. You reached into their lives and made them spend everything on your war. Command is just grief you sign for in advance, but you get through. 1 room at a time, until there are no guards left between you and the man in the doorway from 30 years ago. He doesn't beg. He doesn't even stand up. He looks at you the exact way he looked at you over a bleeding 16-year-old, and he smiles. And he says the cruelest true thing anyone has ever said to you. I didn't make a killer. he says. I found one and gave him permission to stop lying about it. Look at what you built to get to me. Look at the bodies on your stairs. That's not revenge, son. That's you, finally being honest. You're me. You always were. And for 1 second you are 16 again, cold against the tile, and you understand he might be right. That's the second he's waiting for. But you don't shoot where Marcus is. You never have. You shoot where the man he's trying to turn you back into is about to be standing, and you decide, with everything you have left, not to be there. You think of a lighter in a urinal. You think of a porch you'll never sit on and a kid whose face is going gray in your memory. Then you do it clean. 1 round. The man who found you in a doorway dies on his own floor, and the smile goes with him. The room goes quiet, and the quiet is the worst part. You waited 30 years for this, and it brings back exactly no one. The account is settled, and the porch is still empty. Revenge, it turns out, is just a debt that pays out in silence. You crouch, and you flick the blackened lighter shut over his body, and something in it changes. It stops being a curse. It stops being a calling card. It goes back to being a dead man's lighter that a living man carries. Then you do the thing that surprises everyone, including you. You put it in your pocket, and you walk away from all of it. No more chain. No more list. You disappear for real this time toward the only thing you have left to want. A door. A porch. One more chance to stand in front of someone. Level 9. Retired veteran. 6 years later, you're a maintenance tech at a parts plant outside Dayton, Ohio. An hour's drive from the high school where Brett shoved your father's lighter into a urinal. You go by a name that isn't yours. You fix conveyor motors and you eat lunch alone, and you finally got the one thing you spent 30 years bleeding for. You got the porch. When the list was finally empty, you went back for the one person who ever sat in a room with you and asked nothing. Her name is Maria. She married a quiet man she half believes the cover story about, and her boy 8, gap-toothed, fearless in the way only safe kids get to be, calls you by a borrowed first name and means it all the way down. You taught him to bait a hook. You have never taught him a single other thing you know. The cold thing in you is finally going quiet. Some mornings you still measure the distance to the mailbox out of habit 40 feet, no threat, then catch yourself, and laugh, and go drink your coffee. The lighter lives on the mantle now. Just a lighter. Last month it lit 8 candles on a cake for a kid who isn't yours and is. You think you got out. Marcus has been 6 years dead. But the company outlived the man, and dead men still have men. And 3 of his former PMC operators who spent 2 patient years invisible on the overnight shift at a Walmart distribution warehouse off Interstate 70, working the exact gray man trade you taught half the industry, finally matched an old face to a new name. They come on a Tuesday night, and the thing you thought had died in you was only ever sleeping. You feel them in the yard before the door even moves, the weight of men who walk wrong, who hold still wrong. You don't freeze. Not this time. You put Maria and the boy behind the furnace in the basement low, hands over the kids' ears. The way you could not put Hannah and Sam anywhere 30 years and a whole life too late. You kiss the top of the boy's head. Then you go back up the stairs to do the one thing you were ever truly built for. You take all 3. It is fast and it is ugly and it is the last clean work you'll ever do. But the third man falling puts a round through you low under the ribs. And you read the wound the way you've read everything your whole life, no exit you can reach. No pressure that holds it. No firing solution. No fix. You don't panic. You drag yourself to the basement stairs, and Maria's hands are already pressed to the hole in your side, and the boy is crying, and they are alive. Both of them, breathing, behind the furnace exactly where you put them. You protected someone all the way. Finally. It took your entire life, a bathroom in Ohio, a valley with no name. A basement off Interstate 70, but you stood in the doorway, and the door did not get past you. Marcus told you once that out here nobody keeps score. He was wrong about that. Same as he was wrong about you. Somebody kept score the whole time. Someone stayed. You press the blackened lighter into the boy's hand and close his small fingers around it. The way a man in a doorway once pressed a card into yours, except this time what's handed down isn't a war. Brett told you to keep the lighter and ditch the kid. You kept both. You don't need the cold anymore. The last thing you feel isn't the chill climbing your chest. It's the weight of 2 living people leaning on you, holding you here, and for the first time since you were 16 years old, you are exactly where you were always supposed to be. You die warm. Years later, a grown man flicks a dented brass Zippo open without looking. A kid he's never met is getting shoved into a locker across town. And a quiet stranger who knows the reed is already crossing the lot toward him, not with a card this time, with a ride home. The cycle bends. The wound heals 1 generation late. If this story stayed with you, like and subscribe for more.